Hello everyone, my name is Kinjal. Currently, I am pursuing BTech in Electronics and Communication Engineering, and I am in third year. In today's video, I am going to talk about something super important when it comes to protect your network or PC, and that's the firewall. I will break down what firewall actually is and how it works to secure your network or PC. Plus, I will also show that how the same concept applies in AWS where firewalls take the form of security groups. So let's start the presentation to understand these concepts.
To understand it, here I am giving an overview. On the left hand side, we have our internal network, and on the right hand side, we are having internet. So how the internal network and internet will communicate? Of course, there will be some outgoing traffic and there will be some incoming traffic. The outgoing traffic represents the data that is being transferred from the internal network to the internet, and the incoming traffic represents the data that the internet is sending to the internal network. But here is a problem. Along with the incoming traffic, there could be some virus, or we can say that the people sitting at the internet or the hackers in the internet can try to steal our confidential information present in our internal network. So they can send some malicious frames or packets inside the internal network along with the incoming traffic. So to save our internal network, we need a device. So the device we are using here is the firewall. So what a firewall do is that it blocks the malicious frame or the data from entering our internal network and make it safe and secure. Now here is the another example to understand. Let's suppose on the left hand side we have our local area network. You know that the local area network is private, whereas on the right hand side we have internet. So local area network is a trusted network where we can control the flow of information, like what kind of information should flow in the local area network. While on the internet there is no control on the information. There can be malicious information, even there can be useful information also. So how do we separate that useful information for our local area network? To do so, here we are connecting a firewall. So here is the green arrow and the red arrow. The green arrow signifies the useful data, and the red arrow signifies some malicious data. So what a firewall will do, the firewall will allow only the green arrow, that is the useful information, to go into the local area network, whereas it will reject or block the malicious information. So this is how a firewall makes our network secure and safe. So how a firewall will know that what to block and what to accept? So for this, we have to configure our firewall. So the firewall can be configured in inbound rules with the help of outbound rules. So the inbound rules are for the traffic that is coming towards our internal network, whereas the outbound rules are for the traffic that is going to leave our internal network. So let's try to understand with an example. Here I am taking example number 1. So let us suppose we have two servers, HTTP, which is unsecure, and HTTPS, which is secure. And we want that the user should only access the HTTPS server because it is secure and encrypted. So we want that the user can only access the secure one. So here is our user, which is on the internet. Here we are using a firewall. So what we are putting in the firewall as an inbound rule is we are closing the port 80. So port 80 is for HTTP, and we are opening the port 443. So this is how our inbound rule look like when we want to give access to a secure server, that is HTTPS. So what will happen if the user is requesting for both HTTP and HTTPS, then it will give access for port 443, that is HTTPS, because we have configured the inbound rule. So the HTTPS will be accepted, whereas the HTTP will be blocked. So in this way, a firewall is used with the inbound rule to access a particular server which is safe and secure. Now let's take another example. Here we want to make remote login of the particular user over an EC2 instance through SSH. So here is how we will configure the inbound rule of firewall. So let's take an example. Here is the AWS cloud, and inside AWS cloud we have created a EC2. You all know EC2 is a virtual machine, and there we have our SSH server also. Here is a user and he is administrator of company A. So as he is the administrator of company A, we have given him all the privilege to control the EC2 machine, or to control the EC2 machine, even to configure it. Suppose the administrator want to configure the HTTPS server over the EC2. So we have to give the inbound rule in such a way that the administrator of company A only can access EC2. So let's suppose the IP address of administrator of company A is 192.10.10.2. One more thing we need to understand here is that when a administrator or a user want to log in, then it should log in with a public IP address. It should not be a private IP address, because private IP addresses are not routable, whereas public IP addresses can. So here is any other user with IP address 192.10.10.3. Now we only want that administrator of company A should access. So here is our firewall, and what we are doing is we are putting the inbound rule as allow port 22 from 192.168.10.2. Now port 22 open for only source IP address 192.168.10.2. Otherwise, it will block every other port for any other source IP address. So what will happen here? Here the another user is sending request to access port 22, but it is being rejected or blocked by the firewall. But when the administrator of company A requests for port 22, then it is accepted and access is given. So here is how the firewall is helping us for remote login. So from taking the from the preview of the previous example, here is AWS cloud, in which we have created the EC2 instance, that is our virtual machine, and inside our virtual machine we have configured a firewall. So this firewall is virtual firewall. Why? Because we have used it in our EC2 instance, and it is similar to a security group. So when we configure a virtual firewall in the AWS, then we called it as security group, or it is equivalent to security group. So what is a security group? A security group in AWS acts as a virtual firewall for your EC2 instances, controlling both inbound and outbound traffic. You can create additional security groups with specific rules to meet your security requirements. So what we do is that we create a security group and then assign that security group to an EC2 instance. So it acts as a virtual firewall there, because it have inbound and outbound rules. So here is our security group. It has inbound rules as well as it has outbound rules. So the inbound rules control the incoming traffic, and we can specify the source, port range and protocol for each inbound rule. Similarly, outbound rules control the outgoing traffic from your instance. You can specify the destination, port range and protocol for each outbound rule. And generally, it is set to all traffic allowed by default. Now, a security group can be assigned to multiple EC2 instances. So, suppose you have created a security group in your AWS cloud, then you can assign the same security group to multiple virtual machines. So this is the flexibility that security groups allows us or gives us. Also, if you have created multiple security groups with different inbound and outbound rules, then it can be assigned to a single EC2, or we can say a single virtual machine. Multiple security groups can be assigned to an EC2. So here what we got that we have the flexibility that we can assign the multiple security groups. Even if we don't need that rules, we can just remove that security group from our EC2 instance. So that's all for now. Thank you.